Welcome back to another episode of the Tul World podcast. I'm your host, David Jew, and I'm here with Master Jew today.
How's it going there, Mr. Jew?
It's going pretty good.
All right.
So this last week has been Patterns Week for us. And so some of the students were asking, why do we key up in the pattern? And why is it at a specific point as well?
That's a good question.
That is a good question.
Well, I think we should probably talk a little bit about those kiosks, because actually only ITF under President Che has the kiosks, and it's only up to Gay Beck, I believe it is.
Yeah.
And we don't have all the other kiosks in the other patterns. So if you are training at a different school, they may not have kiosks.
Right.
Just a note, right? Mm-hmm. And so I do remember when I first started that we did have kiosks. Mm-hmm. And I do recall General Che talking about the kiosks and why we say Chunji, or to say the pattern name, I should say the pattern name and not shout on what happened to the kiosks, right? Mm-hmm. I do recall him saying that schools and instructors started to key up on every movement. And so he was saying, well, you don't really need to key up all the time. Key ups help us with, in patterns anyway, kind of a point where you can express power or something like that, right? And so not every movement's required that.
Right.
And he was just saying that, all you need is breath control, really. It's that exhale.
Yeah.
That is important in each of the movements. And because some instructors or maybe some schools were doing it too much, he said, you know what, no more. We just work on breath control.
Yeah.
And we don't, instead of shouting at the end of the pattern, shout the name of the pattern.
That's is it wrong to shout at the end of the pattern? Like just to shout? Sometimes we have some students do that, maybe by mistake. They're so into the pattern they accidentally do that.
Well, I think maybe depends on certain situations. Like if you're in competition, as an umpire, I might go, that's not part of the pattern, so that's a deduction point. Yeah. So I wouldn't do that. You better make sure you say the proper name, right? You don't want to do moo moo and go dong goon. Yeah. That would be bad, right?
So my question is, like other styles shout at the end. Right. So is it a way to make us different from other? Because I know karate shouts at the end. And I can't recall if WT does too.
Kind of says, hey, we're done. Because key-ups are used for different reasons, right? One is to create power. The other is to tell our opponents, I kind of say it's the universal language in Taekwondo to say, I'm ready to play. Yeah. So I don't say ready, and then you say ready. I just go, hi! And so I think the shouting or the key-ups are also going to be a little bit different depending on what you're using, right? Yeah. In the pattern, there are certain points in the pattern that we shout, right? And I think it's to emphasize that particular movement, to emphasize that particular technique, right? So someone asked about the rhythm or the life of the pattern. Is there a rhythm to the pattern? And there is, right? Some patterns have like these fast movements, slow movements, and so it's almost like a conversation in a way. It's not monotone all the way, all the time. Right. So the key-ups I think can help with that.
I see. So when did the key-ups leave? And when did the key-ups come back?
That's a good question. I do recall doing the pattern when I was a color belt. And then I think when I was a blue belt or something, I met General Che. He came to our studio and he did a little class for us and had some discussion. And one of those were the key-up was one of the questions I recall. And so after that, we stopped doing that. And we only started to say the name of the pattern. I do recall that. Again, fairly low rank, not understanding history, not really understanding reasons why we do this. Yes, sir. Sounds good. Right. The shouting came back under President Che because he wanted to bring back the way he used to do it.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And I recall that was somewhere around 2008 when we were in Korea.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember having a discussion with him. He says, oh, yeah. That was also the time when he said, we're changing the name. Because I asked him, how come some instructors or some students call the pattern Juche Kodang? Because that's a different pattern as opposed to Juche. And that's also the time we also changed the name of Juche to Kodang. And it's mostly a political thing, right?
Yeah. Right.
Let's scratch that. Let's scratch that political thing. I mean, you could leave it in, I guess. I mean, that's a good discussion as in itself. You know,
Yeah.
Kodang, Juche, what does it mean?
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah, no, that's true. I think bringing back the shouts is a good thing. I think when you have people that do like WT, they're constantly shouting.
Right.
But
that's like too much.
That's almost too much, yeah. But I think that when you don't shout enough, then it's a little awkward to actually do it. So you have to just continue practicing, getting the reps in. Right. Or else your school is very quiet.
Our school is pretty quiet.
It's pretty quiet. There's not much shouting going on. So, when it comes down to the shouting, then it's a little bit awkward, or the students don't know how to do it properly.
Right.
They don't have the confidence to be able to do it.
That's true.
Yeah. So having a little bit at least will keep it in motion.
Yeah, the key-op is important, I think. It from a self-defense point of view, I think it helps us break out of that freeze mode that we might be in when we are all of a sudden in a situation.
Yeah.
And the key-ops can help us bring us out of that.
Right.
I don't know.
All right. Well, let us know your thoughts on the key-ops. Are you guys doing it in your school?
They're good. Yes, of course we are.
Of course. Don't forget to check out our Tul World Plus program, where we take a look at the detailed work of the patterns and the techniques.
You know what?
What's that?
We didn't even say, look, our background's a little different.
Oh, yeah. I thought we'd change it up a little bit.
Change it up. Trying to look a little bit more pro with the mic.
Sure. But as always, don't forget to be safe.
Keep training.
And we'll see you guys next time.
Taekwon.